Hey everyone, it's Lisa Mears here. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, thanks for joining me. Today I'm super excited to be sharing the brand new Tinsel Time Christmas collection from Doodlebug Design. And trust me, this collection is as cute and fun as it gets. It's packed with everything you need to make your holiday crafting extra special, from the paper pad to the adorable ephemera and so much more. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the products that I use, and I'm also going to show you how I made 20 cards using this fun collection. So if you're looking for some last minute Christmas card inspiration, or if you've already been thinking ahead to next year's Christmas cards, stick around. So I want to start out by showing you the products I used, starting with the 6x6 paper pad. This paper pad is so much fun. You get 2 sheets of each design. They are double-sided. So I'll quickly flip through here so you can see all of the fun Christmas and winter designs throughout this pad. You can see that there are some holly leaves, there were some borders there. There are also some little cut aparts and some sentiment strips in here. So these would be great for sentiments for cards. You can just use your paper trimmer or scissors to cut those apart. You also have some snowflakes and some colorful dots. There are some numbers here, so if you wanted to do an advent calendar, you can do that. There's also some little windows you can put on the front of a card with Santa and a Christmas tree. There are some houses with Christmas trees. There's also, here's some more Christmas trees in the same colors of the collection, and some reindeer. Super cute. Here are some more cut aparts with some sentiments for cards. I don't end up using those on my cards because I did buy a sentiment pack, and you'll see that in just a moment. There was a sheet there with some candy, and on the reverse of that are these little list cut aparts, and then on the opposite page are these really pretty flowers and some diagonal plaid. There are some tags that you can use on your holiday gifts or as layering pieces on cards, and then it starts back at the beginning. So again, you get 2 sheets of each one of those designs in the 6x6 paper pad. You can also get those same designs in 12x12 paper as well. And moving on, I also picked up the 12x12 Petite prints assortment, which comes in all of the same colors as the 6x6 paper, but with a more subtle twist. These prints feature beautiful tone-on-tone designs like dots, stripes, wood grain, and grids. They offer a softer background option, and I love using these on my cards when I want a more understated backdrop behind my main elements. These papers are also perfect for layering, which allow you to showcase a fun design around the edges while keeping the center of your card clean and focused. There's 2 sheets with each color family, so you get 2 reds, 2 pinks, 2 greens, and so on and so forth. So I also picked up several packs of different ephemera and sentiments. These are the odds and ends. It shows you what they look like on the back, but I'm going to take them out here in just a moment so that you can see everything that's included here. Here's the Chit Chat collection. These are your sentiments. And then I also picked up the Bits and Pieces, which has some more fun ephemera designs. There's also some tags in that pack. I also picked up the Puffy icons. These are little Puffy stickers, and I use these as embellishments on my cards. So I want to go ahead and open each one of these packs just so you can see all of the fun ephemera that's included. I know a lot of times it's so helpful to actually see what's included in the packs rather than trying to decipher what's in the photos when you're shopping online. So this is the Bits and Pieces pack. There are several of these different designs that look like little mantle wreaths with some little houses and bows. Here are some round wreaths. Those are pretty large. You can use those on a card front. You also have these cute little notepad paper sheets and clipboard. There are some tags that you can use as layering pieces on your cards, or if you just wanted to use those as tags, you can. There are some Christmas lights, garland, and some stockings. There are some flowers in this pack, red and pink. There's also a few snowflakes in here, but there's another pack that has a whole bunch more snowflakes, and you'll see that here momentarily. Okay, this next pack is the odds and ends. This is what I really love Doodlebug for, is because you can get these packs and make so many fun scenes on your cards. I love all of the fun elements that they include here because I love making scene cards, and Doodlebug gives you lots of fun ephemera that you can make those types of cards. I love all of these little Christmas houses. Here's a sleigh. There's a fireplace with Santa coming out of the fireplace. All of these really pretty, colorful Christmas trees. There are some snow globes, one with Santa, one with a house, and one with a reindeer. There's lots of little reindeer in this pack. And there are lots of Santas. There are candy pieces. So you can see there's gumdrops and peppermint and candy jars. There's also ornaments. There's a toy sack, there's stockings, and lots of snowflakes. This next pack is the Chit Chat pack, and this has all of the words. And here's a look at what's included. There are lots of large words. You can use those on slimline cards because they're pretty big. You can do like a Happy Christmas, or there's a Here Comes Santa Claus. You can do that. But there's also some large words there for scrapbook pages. There is also a Merry and Bright, which is super large. I will be using that one today on a slimline card. And then there's also lots of banner sentiments in various colors of the paper collection. You have some curved banners and some straight banners. Have a holly jolly Christmas, season's greetings, 'tis the season. There are also some speech bubble sentiments and some round sentiments as well. There are so many other fun products in this collection, so I do encourage you to check them all out, and I will have product links down in the description box below. And if you plan on making a purchase, I always appreciate when you click on my links to do so, because I do get a small commission at no extra cost to you, and that does help support me and my YouTube channel. So thank you so much. So let's go ahead and make some cards. I cut this white strip to 5 1/4 by 7/8 inch. I have this gray and white sheet from the 12 by 12 Petite prints, which is 5 1/4 by 4. I also have a piece of white cardstock measured at 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and a piece of red cardstock from my stash, which I cut to 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. Now, by the way, I will have all of these measurements on my blog, and you can find my coordinating blog link in the description box below. So I'll start out by using this strip of white cardstock and just cutting a little hill out of the top of that strip. I'm just using my scissors to do so. If you had a border die and you want to cut out a hill border, you can do that, but it was just easy to use my scissors to do the same thing. After cutting that hillside border out of the white cardstock, it does give me two different hillside borders that I can use on two separate cards. I will be saving the other one, and I'll be using the smaller one here on this card. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue it down to the bottom part of that gray with the white polka dot paper. This kind of reminds me of a snowy background with those white polka dots. That's why I chose that paper from the Petite Prints paper pad. So I tucked the tree behind that little snowy hill, and then the lamp post I glued down to the left side of that card layer. For the church, I'm going to go ahead and put some double-sided adhesive foam on the back so it's slightly raised in front of both of those other items that are on the card. And I'm going to do the same thing with the sentiment. Just going to put some double-sided adhesive foam on the back so that's raised as well. To fill in some of that empty space between the top of the church and the sentiment, I'm going to add some of these star stickers from the Puffy icon pack. Next, I'm going to add a red bird. I did put some foam on the tail, and I'm going to put some glue on the body because the body is going to rest on that church and the tail will be adhered to the actual card base. Remember, the church was actually raised up with some foam, so it's a little bit higher than that tree. So I needed to add some foam on the back of the tail in order for that bird to lay flat on the card. So then I just added that to the white card layer and then added that to the red card layer, and then I'll add that to an A2 size white card base. Next, I'm going to take some glue and I'm going to put some glue, just some dots where it looks like there's snow on the lamppost and on the roof of the church. And then I'm going to sprinkle on some of my Lawn Fawn Chunky glitter. And it's just going to make it look like snow on the card with the glitter, and it's just going to add some nice definition to this card. So I'll let that dry and this card is complete. For my next card, the white strip is 5 1/8 by 1.5 inches. I have this piece from the pattern paper pad. It's 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. I have a piece of teal from my stash, which is cut to 5 1/4 by 4. And then this striped paper is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. I did cut the center out with a rectangle die just to save it because it's pattern paper and I just wanted to save it in case I can use it for another card. And that striped paper is from the 12 by 12. So here I'm taking the white cardstock that was 5 1/8 by 1.5 inches. I did cut a hill out of the top of the cardstock just like I did with the previous card. I didn't use the leftover one from the previous card because it was too small, so I just created a new one, and I'm going to add that little snowy hill to the bottom of this star pattern paper. The ephemera that I'm using is the sleigh and Santa holding the reindeer, and I have this piece of ephemera that is a toy sack. I'm going to glue Santa's hand onto that toy sack so that it is all one piece, and then I'll go ahead and add the sleigh to the snowy hill. I am going to put some glue on the left side of that toy sack and press it down onto Santa so that it is more secure, and then I'm going to flip it over and put some double-sided adhesive foam on the back so that Santa is popped up in front of the sleigh. I am using the Ho 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 sentiment, and I put some double-sided adhesive foam on the left side and along the very bottom, and then on the very top right I just put some glue, and that's going to be glued onto the bottom of the reindeer and Santa, and then the left side of that sentiment is popped up with the foam onto the card panel. And then I'm going to add some of the stars from one of the ephemera packs. Next, I'm going to add that layer to that teal cardstock from my stash. So you can see a little bit of the teal peeking out on the edge. And then I'll add that to that candy cane stripe piece of pattern paper. That layer is going to go on the A2 size card base. So most of these cards are A2 in size, 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. There is one card in this video that I'm going to make a slimline card, but all the others will be the A2 size. For my next card, I have the diagonal plaid pattern paper. I cut that to 5 1/4 by 1/2. I'm using the yellow grid paper from the 12 by 12 Petite prints that's cut to 5¼ by 4. And then I have a red polka dot paper that's cut to 5½ by 4¼ and I used a rectangle die to cut the center out since that red layer is going to be layered in the back and I wanted to save that pattern paper. So I'm adding the diagonal plaid strip to the bottom of the yellow grid paper, and then I'm going to add that layer to the red pattern. I'm going to grab this 6x6 sheet with the sentiments on it, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut out a sentiment. It says, "Have a holly jolly Christmas." And then I'm going to cut this down even further because I want it to fit on this clipboard. So I'm going to cut "have a" by itself, and then I'll cut the words holly jolly by themselves, and then leave the word Christmas on a separate line. So I'll set those aside for right now as I figure out how I want to position all of these ephemera pieces. I know I want the Christmas tree there with presents and Santa right in the middle, and he's going to be in front of that clipboard. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this clipboard down to my card layer and tuck it underneath Santa. I'll glue the Christmas tree to the card. The blue present is going to be on the right side of that tree. It's going to be positioned behind Santa. I am going to put some foam tape on the back of Santa so that he is popped up in front. And then I'm also going to add some foam to the yellow present and pop that up too. Next, I'm going to position the sentiment where I want it on this clipboard shape, and then I'll glue it down. Next, I'm going to add a holly leaf to the top right corner of that clipboard. Then I'm going to take out the Puffy stickers and add some of the stars to the card. Next, I'll add that layer to an A2 size white card base, and that will complete this card. For my next card, I have a piece of this polka dot paper from the 12x12 Petite print assortment. I cut that to 5½ by 4¼ I'll be using the ephemera piece that looks like a mantle wreath. It has an ornament with a bow. I'll also be using the pink house. I did put some double-sided foam behind it because I want it to pop up, and I'll be using 2 pink ornaments. I cut some twine and I'm just taping the twine on the back of each one of the ornaments so it looks like they will be hanging from that mantle wreath. So that twine is actually going to be positioned underneath the wreath. I cut it a little bit too long, so I am going to snip off a little bit at the top. I'll position those ornaments exactly where I want them. And then I'll go ahead and glue each one down. I will remove the backing from the tape and then add glue to the rest of the ornament, and then I'll go ahead and position that onto that card layer. And I'll do the same for the second ornament. I am going to use my double-sided adhesive tape to just put a little piece of tape at the top of that twine to keep it held down straight. I'll do that for both of them, and then I'll peel back the backing, and then I'll add glue to that wreath, and I'll put that on the card over top of the twine. So again, the house has some foam on the back. I'm just going to peel back the backing of that foam and add the house to my card. I'm going to use the sentiment, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas." I'm going to put some foam on the very far left and right side of that banner because the middle part of the banner will be glued down to the house and the left and right edge will be adhered to the card layer. So I want to make sure that it lays flat on that card, so adding that foam is important to ensuring that it lies flat. Next, I'm going to use the Puffy stickers, and I'm going to add the holly sticker to the top of each one of the ornaments. I'm going to add that layer to an A2 size card base. And then I'm going to finish this up by adding some glue to the top of the chimney as well as the roof line, and I'm going to sprinkle some of that chunky glitter right on top of that glue to make it look like there is snow on the roof. Once I sprinkle that on, I'll just tap off the excess. This card is now complete. I love how that turned out. I think this is so pretty. I love all that pink. Moving on to my next card, I have the holly paper cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I have a piece of red from my stash and a piece of the pink with the white polka dot from the 12 by 12 paper. I cut those two with an eyelet rectangle die from Pretty Pink Posh. I really love that eyelet design around the edges. I think it's so pretty. So for the pink die cut, I'm going to take a rectangle die and I'm going to die cut the middle out. I want to just hold these close and just show you. You can see that next to that eyelet rectangle there was some stitching all around that rectangle. I'm going to use a rectangle die that fits inside the center of that rectangle without covering up the stitching. And I'm going to die cut the center out of just that pink die cut. I'm going to use the centerpiece for this card, but save the frame for another card. So I'll put that frame aside. So now I'm going to add the rectangle pink layer to the top of the red layer. So that layer is nicely right inside of that eyelet rectangle frame. And there's still that stitching border on that red cardstock. Next, I'm going to just take a rectangle die and die cut the center of the holly cardstock out of it just to save it because it's pattern paper, and of course I want to save that in case I need it for another card. You don't have to do that step. If you want to just cover up the pattern paper, you can do that as well. So then I'm just going to layer those pieces together. So you can see that pretty holly paper extending beyond the edges of the eyelet rectangles. And then I'm just going to put a couple ephemera pieces on the front. I'm using the round Santa, so it's a circle shape with a Santa face in the middle. And then I have this little bow with some pine leaves, and I'm going to make it so this looks like an ornament. I figured if I put the pine leaves with the bow and the bell above that round Santa, it will look like a Christmas ornament. So tell me if I'm wrong. Do you think that looks like a Christmas ornament? I think it could pass for one. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on the back. I did pop up the pine leaves with the bell and the bow. I popped that up on some foam so it has a little bit of dimension. And then I'm going to use the sentiment that says Happy Holly Days. I think that sentiment is so perfect for this card because there's lots of holly leaves on this card. And I'm just going to add the sentiment towards the bottom. I did cut that out of the pattern paper pad. It was one of those sheets that had different sentiments on it, so I'm adding that, and then I'm putting some stars from the Puffy stickers. And then I'll finish this up by adding it to an A2 size white card base, and the card will be complete. For my next card, I'm going to use that frame that I cut out on the previous card. I'll be using it on this card, and I'm also going to be using a piece of this striped teal paper from the 12 by 12 paper pad. I die cut that paper using the same rectangle die that I used to die cut the center of that pink frame. That way it fits perfectly inside. I'm going to layer that pink frame onto the red pattern paper, which I cut the red paper to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I did cut the center out of that one just to save it. You don't have to cut that center out if you don't want to, but I'm going to go ahead and layer that pink eyelet rectangle frame right on top, and then I'll add that piece to a white A2 size card base. Next, I'll add that striped pattern paper right inside of that opening. And just like with the last card, I'm going to make it look like there's a Christmas ornament on the front. So I'm going to add the circle die cut shape with the snowman inside, and then I'll add the bow with the pine needles on top. I added a few of the star shapes from the Puffy stickers, and that completes the card. My next card will be a landscape card, and I have this teal paper from the Petite Prints paper pack, and that is cut to 5.5 by 4.25 inches. And then I have the red pattern paper using the candy cane stripe side. That's also from the Petite Prints paper pad. That's 4 3/4 by 3.5 inches. And then I'm going to add another piece of pattern paper to the top of that. That's from the 6 by 6 pad. I cut it to 2 5/8 by 3 1/8. So again, I cut the center out of the two bottom layers just to save that paper. And then on the top of all of these layers, I'm going to add these candy canisters with a sentiment that says Merry Christmas. I'll add the one on the left and the one on the right first, and then the one in the middle, it's going to be slightly in front of the other two, so I'll add that last. And the sentiment is going to be popped up with some foam. The Puffy sticker shapes have some fun little candy pieces on them. So I'm using the candy canes. I'm going to put a couple on the card. I'm going to put a heart inside of the two candy canes. There's also some different color peppermint pieces and some little dots. So I'm just going to add some of these little candy stickers just to make it a little bit more fun, as well as a little bit more dimensional, because these puffy stickers do have some dimension to them. I am going to add a few more dots there at the top of those candy jars. And then I'll add this to an A2 size card base. So here's a closer look at the finished card. For my next card, I have this reindeer pattern paper that's cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5. And then I have the red dot paper that's measured at 1 3/4 by 4 3/4. So I just add that red pattern paper on the right side of the reindeer paper, and then I'm going to add this tag on the left. I'm going to add the teal house, and I'll tuck a pink snowflake behind the roof line. I added some foam tape behind the reindeer, and I'm going to pop that up on the left side of that card, slightly in front of the left side of that house. And I'm going to add a banner sentiment at the bottom of the house and covering a little bit of the reindeer. It's also going to cover the very bottom part of that red pattern paper, so it's going to almost look like the reindeer is standing on or standing behind that banner sentiment. So it's actually going to make all of those pieces look like they're grounded by having that banner sentiment there. That is on foam, so it is popped up slightly. I'm just adding a little bit of foam underneath the bottom part here because I need a little bit more foam on here so that it will lay flat on my card. I'm going to add another snowflake. Again, I added some dimensional foam for some dimension, and then I'm going to put some glue in the center of the tag, and I just went in my stash and grabbed some twine, tied it in a bow, and added it to the tag. And then I'm going to add a star shape right above the reindeer. I added this to an A2 size card base, and then I'm going to add some glue to the snow on the house. And I'm going to add some of the chunky glitter to make it look like some snow. Any of the excess glitter is going to be shaked off on the right side of that card panel. I don't want to shake it off so that it's going down the center of the card panel, because all of that excess will end up going inside of the sentiment, on the inside back of the sentiment, and I don't want all of that glitter to be behind that sentiment, because remember, there is some foam tape back there that does have some stickiness, and I just didn't want it to get stuck back there. I did put some glue on the snowflake as well and added some glitter to a few spots on the snowflake. I think this card turned out so pretty. I love that one. Moving on, I have a piece of the green paper from the 12 by 12 Petite Prints collection, and that is cut to 4¼ by 5½. I have the candy pattern paper cut to 4 by 5¼ I have the red dot paper cut to 4¼ by 2½. I'm also using the tag with the Christmas trees. I'm going to cut the bottom part of the tag off just because I don't need the entire thing, because the tag's going to be tucked behind that red dot pattern paper. So I'll go ahead and put glue on that tag and add it to the candy pattern paper, and then I will add the dot paper across the width of the candy pattern paper. I'm going to start placing the ephemera pieces that I will be using. They're all going to kind of cluster inside of that red pattern paper. I have the looks like an ornament box. I'm going to be using a reindeer and a couple of candy canes. My sentiment is going to say Merry Christmas, and I am going to be popping that up on the card with some foam. I chose to use the same colors as the sentiment that are in that tag, just to bring out more of that lime green color. So once I have everything where I want them, I'll start gluing them down to the card. And in addition to popping up the sentiment, I will have some double-sided adhesive foam on the back of the reindeer, so the reindeer will be popped up as well. I added a candy piece from the sticker pack between the candy canes. It looks like a piece of it looks like taffy. And then I added a gumdrop die cut piece. I added some twine tied in a bow onto the tag. And then I'm going to add that layer to the lime green pattern paper. Then I will add that entire layer to an A2 size white card base. And that will complete this card. Next, I have this red dot paper cut to 5¼ by 2½. I have the house pattern paper at 5¼ by 4. And then the red cardstock from my stash is 5½ by 4¼ So the red dot paper is going to go across the longest side of the house paper. I'm also going to bring in the gray tag with the colorful dots. I'm going to tuck that snowflake in right behind that tag, and then I will add glue to the tag and adhere it to the card layer. I'll be bringing in a pink Christmas tree and this cute little snow girl with the little birds on her hands. The sentiment is going to be 'Tis the Season. It's the gray sentiment that matches the color in the tag. So I'll go ahead and add the Christmas tree behind the snow girl. The snow girl is going to be in the center. I'm going to put some double-sided adhesive foam on the back of the snowflake. I'm going to add that to the card. I did put some double-sided adhesive foam on the back of the snow girl. She's going to be popped up. I'll add some more foam to another snowflake. I'm going to go ahead and glue down the sentiment. And then I'll add that to the red cardstock from my stash. So we'll see a little bit of red peeking out on the edges. And then I'm going to add that to an A2 size card base. I'm going to add a few gems from my stash. Those are going to be added to the centers of the snowflakes, and that will complete my card. For my next card, I'm using this piece of ephemera that looks like a sheet of notebook paper. I'm also using the holly pattern paper, which measures 3 and 4¼ and the red pattern paper, which is 4 by 5¼ inches. I'll also be using a couple of borders from this sheet of pattern paper. I'll just use my paper trimmer to trim these down. And these are the borders that I'm using. I have the green Merry Christmas and the yellow star border. So I'll go ahead and position the holly paper on top of the red pattern paper at kind of like a diagonal, and do the same for the notebook sheet. After adding those two pieces to the red pattern paper, I'm going to bring in those two border strips and add them towards the bottom of that card panel, starting with the yellow one on top and then the Merry Christmas green border at the bottom. And they do extend beyond the card panel, so I'll just snip them off with my scissors so that they're flush with the left and right edges of that red paper. I am bringing in the reindeer as well as a Christmas tree, so I'll go ahead and layer those onto the card. For the sentiment, I'm using a speech bubble that says it's the most wonderful time of the year, and I'm going to pop that down on top of the sheet of paper. And then I'm going to bring in some of the presents that are the Puffy stickers and add them to my card. Finally, I'll add the flower at the top left corner of the card, and I added it to a card base, and that completes this card. For my next card, I'm bringing in this red pattern paper that measures 4¼ by 5½ inches. I'm also going to be bringing in some postage dies from Spellbinders. And I love the postage edge on the die. I die cut this white piece of cardstock from my stash. These dies also have another die that goes on the inside, which you can die cut as I did this pattern paper, and it puts a little dot border along the edge. And I chose to use these postage edge dies because the sentiment I'm using has that fun postage edge on it. So you can see how the sentiment has that, and it matches up with the white cardstock. Okay, so I'm just using a rectangle die here to cut the center of that red pattern paper out from the middle, and I'll just save that for another project. And then I'm just going to layer up all of these pieces. So starting with the green with the white dots, that's going to go on top of the white cardstock that I die cut with the postage edge dies. And then I'll add that layer to the red pattern paper. And then I'll just start positioning all of my ephemera pieces. I have a few of the snowflakes, and then I have the sentiment that says, "May your days be merry and bright." That's going to go in the middle. I have the little hot chocolate mug with the Santa face and the candy cane and whipped cream. And that's going to go at the lower right portion of that card front. I am going to tuck the snowflake here on the right. I'm going to tuck that behind the sentiment. I'm going to do the same thing with the other snowflake at the top left. So I'll glue those down first, and then I'll put the sentiment on the card right in the middle. And then I'll add the Santa mug. I did put some adhesive foam on the back, so I'll go ahead and put that on the card layer so that has a little bit of dimension and it's popped up. I'm bringing in some stars, and I did put some foam on the back of a few of them, and I'm going to pop up some of them on the card front and some will be adhered flat. So you can see how I'm kind of layering the stars. So the one that's kind of on top of the other one will be popped up slightly in front. I'm bringing in some silver gems from my stash, and I'm going to add a couple to the centers of the snowflakes, and then I'll also add a few around the card as well. Next, I'll add that to an A2 size card base, and that will complete this card. For my next card, I have this piece of red pattern paper cut to 3¾ by 5. I have this striped border, and that's from that 6x6 page that has all of the borders on it. So I cut that out with my paper trimmer. I'm going to go ahead and put that striped border on the very bottom of that red card panel. And since it's a little bit longer, I just use my scissors to trim off the excess on the sides. I'm bringing in the fireplace. This is such a cute little fireplace with the Santa peeking out. I'm going to add that to the card panel. I also have the banner that says "Merry and Bright." That's going to go between the fireplace and the border strip, so it's going to cover up that little bit of red area that's between those two pieces. I did put some foam adhesive on the back of the sentiment, so I'll just pop that on to that card layer. I'm also adding the Christmas light string. I'll put that on the top of the card. I am going to extend it a little bit beyond that card panel, and then I'll just snip off the overhang there so that it's even and flush with the top of the card. Now I have this other Christmas light string. It's identical to the one I've already glued down. I'm just adding some foam on the back, and I'm going to pop that up right on top of the one that I already have on the card. I think that gives some really nice dimension, and I love the way that that looks. You can see the one that's glued down, and you can also see how it has that dimension with the one on top. I just love that look. Okay, so now I'm going to add a couple of presents to my fireplace. I'm using the Puffy stickers to do that. I'm also going to add one of these cute little Christmas trees off to the left. Now I'm ready to add this to some layers. So I have this green paper from the 12 by 12 paper pack that's cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I also have a piece of white cardstock from my stash cut to 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. So I'm going to layer my decorated card panel onto the white cardstock first. That's going to give me a little bit of a white edge, and then I'll put that on the green pattern paper. Next, I'll add it to an A2 size card base, and then I'll add a few of the stars from the Puffy sticker pack. And now this card is complete. For my next card, I have a piece of red cardstock from my stash that's cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. This star pattern paper is 4 by 5 1/4, and the tree pattern paper is 4 inches by 2 inches. So I'm going to add the tree pattern paper to the bottom of the star paper, and then I'll add that to the red cardstock. I'm using the striped tag. I'll also be using the green Christmas tree, a red snowflake. I'll be using the snow globe with Santa inside, another pink snowflake, a green snowflake, and another Christmas light string. So I'm just positioning all of those items where I want them on my card, and then I'll start gluing them down. For the pink snowflake that's tucked behind the snow globe, I did cut that in half, and I'm just tucking that behind. The snow globe is actually going to be popped up on some foam, so you can see there it's slightly raised so that I can get that snowflake behind it, and then the green snowflake is going to be popped up on foam as well. I did put some foam on the back of the Christmas lights, and I'll put that at the top of the card panel. And for the sentiment, I'm using Merry and Bright. I believe that's one from the paper pad. I just cut it out of the paper pad, and then I'm putting some foam on the back and adding it to the card. I am going to bring in one more star. It's the gray one, and I'm just going to put some foam on the back of that. And I'm going to add it so that it's slightly overlapping that snow globe. Next, I'll add this to a card base, and then I'm going to bring out some of the silver gems and add a couple to the card. I'm adding a few to the snowflakes and just some spots around the card just to add a little bit of that shiny bling. And now this card is complete. For my next card, I have a piece of this pink pattern paper from the 12 by 12 pack. I cut that to 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. I also have a piece of red cardstock from my stash at 5 1/4 by 4. This snowflake paper is 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. I did add the white snowy border from card 1. Remember, it was the leftover piece that I had from that first card. Well, I'm using it on this one. I added it to the bottom of that snowflake paper, and now I'm just adding that entire layer to that pink pattern paper. I'm bringing in my ephemera pieces, which include a couple of the Christmas trees, which I'm going to tuck one of them behind the snowy border, and the other one is going to be tucked behind the sleigh with the presents. I'm going to snip off the bottom of that green Christmas tree just so that I can get it a little bit further down behind that snow border. I'm also bringing in the Santa Claus. So the two trees and the sleigh with the presents are adhered flat to the card, and Santa has some foam behind him, so he is a little bit in front of those other items. I am bringing in a Christmas present, and I'm going to put it to the bottom right side of Santa, and I'm also going to bring in a red bird, and I put some foam on the back of that, and I'm popping that up on the sleigh. The sentiment is Happy Holidays, and I put some foam on that as well. And then I'm going to bring in some star stickers from the Puffy sticker pack. Okay, for my next card, I have this piece of pink grid paper that is cut to 3.5 by 3.5 inches. The red dot pattern paper is 2.25 by 4.5. The flower paper is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then I have red cardstock from my stash, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. So I'm going to layer the red pattern paper and the pink grid onto the flower pattern paper. I'm adding 3 of the stockings to that. I added some foam to the back of the Christmas lights, and then I'm going to add them to the top of that card panel. I'll add a flower to the lower left-hand portion of that card, and a sentiment from the pattern paper pad. This is from the sheet that had all of the sentiments on it. So my sentiment says Merry Christmas, and then I'm going to add that to a piece of red cardstock. So that red cardstock is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and then I'll put that on an A2 size card base. I'll add a few of my silver gems to the front, and that will complete this card. For my next card, I'm going to be using that wreath that says Merry Christmas. I also am using the Eyelet rectangle die once more. This time I cut that die with vellum, and I have a piece of the pattern paper that I cut to 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. I'm going to add that pattern paper to a piece of red cardstock from my stash that I cut to 5.5 by 4 1/4. Now, if you didn't want to use the vellum layer, you can put the wreath directly on the pattern paper, but I'm using the vellum layer because it kind of just mutes a little bit that pattern paper, so it's not so bold against the ephemera piece that I have. So I'll go ahead and put glue on the back of the wreath and then attach it to the vellum. And then I'm going to put the sentiment Merry Christmas on top of that. I did put some foam on the sentiment so it's popped up on the wreath. And I'm going to bring in 2 birds, and the birds are facing towards the wreath, and they're going to go on each end. And I'm going to go ahead and glue down the front part or the head part of the birds onto the banner, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of foam underneath the tail so that it's actually stuck down to the card. And I'll do that for both of those birds. Next, I'm going to adhere the vellum piece to my card layer. Now, when you're applying glue to vellum, only put it behind where you see your cardstock. Don't put any adhesive where you can't see your cardstock because it definitely will show through if you end up getting adhesive on other parts of that vellum. So I'll go ahead and press that down. Next, I'll add that to a A2 size card base, and I'll add a few of the silver gems on the wreath just to add a little bit of sparkle. And this card is now complete. Moving on, for my next card I have a piece of white cardstock. This white cardstock is cut to 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and I have a border die that I'm putting at the lower portion of that white cardstock, and I ran it through my die cut machine. I love this die from Pink and Maine because when you run it through your die cutting machine, you actually get a cut that has a border shape on each side of the cardstock with stitching, and that's so fun. In addition to these pieces, I'm going to have the house pattern paper that I cut to 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and that's going to be a background scene for my card. So I'm going to take both of those border pieces. The taller piece is going to be layered behind the smaller piece. So you can see how I'm just layering them there, and my goal with this card is to have a little scene with houses using these puffy stickers. The little houses are going to be set behind the smaller border. So I'm just going to mark with my pencil where I want that smaller border to end. So where I want the bottom to be on the larger border. And then I'm just going to turn over the smaller border and add some double-sided adhesive foam to the back, because this smaller border is going to be popped up in front of the other one. I'm not adhering it flat to the card. I'm just adding some dimensions so that I have a little bit of dimension between the two borders. So after adding the foam, and notice that I didn't put the foam all the way to the very top because I'm going to have some houses sitting inside or behind that border. I'm just going to take the smaller border and line it up with that little pencil mark, and I'm just going to erase the pencil mark that I had on the taller border, and then I'm going to use my scissors to cut a straight line across the bottom so that I cut off all of that excess of that taller border. Next, I'm using this candy cane striped border from the paper pad. I'm going to put it at the very bottom of this snowy hill. So I'm just going to put some glue on the back of the border, attach it to the bottom of the snowy hill, and I will cut the excess off on the left side. Next, I'm going to add this border to my pattern paper with the houses on it. I'm putting glue on the back, and that will be adhered flat to that panel. Next, I'm going to bring in the car with Santa driving and the Christmas tree on top. So the car is going to be on the very bottom of that card panel, and the whole purpose of that candy cane strip was to kind of make it look like it's a road, but it's a fun candy cane design. So the car is going to sit on top of that, and then I'm bringing in the houses from the Puffy sticker pack, and those houses will be set between those two snowy borders. So I'm going to bring in 3 houses. 2 will fit on the left side of the car, and then I'll make sure that the car is positioned in the right amount of space so that I can fit 1 house to the right of it. And I am going to bring in a Christmas tree so that I can put between 2 of the houses on the left. I think this is so cute. I love making little scenes with my cards, and this is just so stinking cute with the little puffy sticker houses. I love that. And then you have the houses set behind that because you have all of those that are on that pattern paper. You can also do something similar to this with the Christmas tree pattern paper that's in this paper pad. If you just wanted to have a big field of Christmas trees in the background, you can do that as well. So I'm putting some foam at the top part of this car because that's going to sit flat on the card with the foam behind it, and then the bottom part of that car will have glue because that's going to sit on that first border, the first snowy border hill. So I'm going to use the sentiment Santa Claus is coming to town, and I pop that up on foam. That's going to go at the top of the card, and then this entire panel will go on a piece of red cardstock. So the red cardstock will measure 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and then I'll add that to an A2 size card base. And that card is complete. Next, I have this piece of snowflake pattern paper that I cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. The red paper is 2 by 4 3/4. The teal paper is 3 by 4 1/4, and the pink paper is 3 1/2 by 1. And I'll go ahead and layer all of those pieces onto the snowflake paper. So I'll add the red paper first. That will be applied to the right side of the snowflake paper, and then I'll add the pink strip towards the bottom. Next, I'll add the teal pattern paper right to the center. And then I'll go ahead and position my ephemera pieces on top of that. I have two Christmas trees, a pink one, a green one. I have a snowman, a couple of snowflakes. I am going to be using a gumdrop, and I have a sentiment that says Happy Holidays that I'm going to pop up on some foam, and that's going to go at the bottom of this little scene. I'll go ahead and add the Christmas trees. The pink one will be tucked behind the others. And then I'll just start gluing the rest of these ephemera pieces down to the card. I'm also going to bring in some of the stickers from the Puffy sticker pack. I really like that candy cane, so I'm going to add a couple candy canes at the bottom of the Christmas trees next to the gumdrop and the other candy piece. I'm going to add some snowflakes to the card. The red one will be popped up in front of the gray one. And I'm going to add a speech bubble that says Snow Fun next to the snowman. I added one more snowflake popped up in front of the green Christmas tree, and then I'll add that to an A2 size card. I'll finish this up by adding some silver gems to the front of this card for a little bit of sparkle, and that will complete this card. My next card is going to be a slimline card, and I used some dies from Trinity Stamps to die cut some card panels. I have a piece of teal cardstock from my stash, which I used a Scallop slimline card die for that one, and then I have a stitched Scallop card rectangle die for the dotted pattern paper, and I just layered that right on top. And these large sentiments from this paper collection are perfect for slimline cards, so I'm going to be using the Merry and Bright one that fits perfectly on the front of this card. And I'm going to be bringing in a couple of the Christmas ornaments that will fill up the space on the right side of the sentiment. I'm also going to be bringing in some of the stars and layering those on this card. So I'm tucking one behind the left part of the sentiment. I went ahead and glued that down. Now I'll go ahead and glue down the sentiment, followed by the ornaments. And then I'll add a few more of the stars. I'll glue one of them flat and layer the other one on top of that. I'm also going to put a star right on top of the H on the Merry and Bright sentiment and layer another one there on the left side. Using the Puffy stickers, I'm going to add some of the holly leaves to the top of the ornaments. Then I'm going to add this to a slimline card base. So my card base for the slimline card measures 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. I'll add a few of the silver gems, and then this card will be complete. So with Christmas just around the corner, you've probably already wrapped up your holiday cards, but I hope you found some inspiration for next year's Christmas cards with this video. I'd love to hear which card is your favorite. Leave me a comment down below. If you're interested in any of the products you saw in this video, please check the description box for product links, and for full measurements and pictures, be sure to check out my blog, and there will be a link in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.